Hey, what's up, Good Life? Thanks for joining me for today's 128 moment. Last Sunday, our sermon began with an amazing miracle, Jesus feeding more than 5,000 people. And our sermon ended looking at the next day when Jesus gave some really tough teaching on what it looked like to truly follow him. But in between those two things, there was a most miraculous moment that we didn't see. After the meal was done, Jesus sent his disciples ahead of him to sail to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, and Jesus retreated up a mountain to pray. And the trip of the disciples across the sea was slow going. There were strong winds and they're making no progress at all. But as they're struggling to sail, they saw something amazing. Jesus was walking past them on the water. Now, at first, they were terrified thinking it was a ghost, but once they figured out it was Jesus, Peter did what Peter usually did. Peter made a grand gesture. He said, "If that's you, Jesus, tell me to come to you on the water, and I will." And Jesus simply replied to him, "Come." And so Peter climbed over the side and he started walking toward Jesus. I mean, wow, can you imagine what that was like, taking each step across the top of a stormy sea? But Jesus made it possible for Peter to take steps that he could never take on his own. And we know that because when Peter started to look around and he saw the wind and he saw the waves, he was terrified and he started to sink. And he cried out, "Lord, save me." And Jesus reached out his hand and he took hold of Peter, saying, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" You know, Peter sometimes gets a bad rap for failing in this moment, but there's two things that I don't want us to miss in this story, in Peter's little sinking moment here. The first thing is this. The first thing we need to see is that at least Peter got out of the boat. If Peter failed in this moment, he at least failed forward. I'd rather risk getting in over my head for Jesus than staying safe and dry in the boat while being disobedient. Also, let's consider this. Let's consider what Peter had seen up to this point. He'd seen miracles of water turned to wine and a crippled man being healed by the pool of Bethesda. He'd seen the feeding of the 5,000. Amazing things, yeah? But Peter hadn't seen anything yet. Peter had not seen the cross. He'd not seen the empty tomb. He'd not seen Jesus ascend to heaven. He'd not seen the Holy Spirit come on the day of Pentecost. He'd not yet preached that powerful sermon. We often wish that we could experience what the disciples experienced, that if we walked and talked and served alongside him, maybe we'd get out of the boat when Jesus says, "Come." But we've got to realize that we've seen more than they have. We know how the story ends. We've seen the cross and the empty tomb. So the second thing we can't miss in this story is that we have seen more of Jesus than Peter had seen that night when he got out of the boat. When Peter offered to walk to Jesus on the water, Jesus just said, "Come," and Peter did. And Jesus was sufficient for every step of faith that Peter took. The problem only arose when he took his eyes off Jesus. So consider this, Good Life. When it comes to living out the Great Commission, Jesus looks at you and he looks at me and he still says, "Come." Step out of the boat of your comfort and trust me to sustain you, to hold you with each and every step. If I can make a man walk on water, I can definitely empower you to walk in obedience. So Good Life, are you willing to step out of the boat this week? Are you willing to trust Jesus to hold you and to help you every step of the way? Hopefully be able to join us on Sunday as we continue to study the life of Jesus as recorded by John in our sermon series called Believe. We'll also be celebrating the women of Good Life as we celebrate Mother's Day together on Sunday. We'll have gifts for all the women of Good Life, and we're going to have a photo booth set up so you can take some pictures and record some memories with your family and your friends. You don't want to miss it. We're looking forward to gathering 9:30 and 11 at the church on Sunday, 11 o'clock online. And until we come together again, let's go be a people who will love enough.